Welcome back to the Own Your Awkward podcast. I'm your host, Andy Vargo, and every episode we get into what has made our guests vulnerable and how they've learned how to own their awkward in order to live their best life. Stay tuned so you can hear every awkward moment in today's show. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own Your Awkward podcast. I'm your host, Andy Vargo, and today we have the co-founder of LaughTech and founder and creative force behind Dreamosity, Marcelle Allen. Marcelle, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much. It's an honor to be here.
Hey, we're glad to have you on. Hey, so everybody, in just a couple minutes, we're going to put Marcelle on the spot and ask her what makes her awkward or what's made her awkward that she's learned how to own. But before we dive into that, do you want to just give everybody a little bit about the essence of Marcelle and who you are and what you have going on?
Yeah, sure. That's great. So my nickname is Hallmark. I'm a ridiculously optimistic person, which is part of how I'm awkward, actually. But I've been in the social media management game for about 10 years. And then LaughTech, my humor education company, has been around for about 3. And they go together perfectly because a lot of my clients and friends and colleagues, it's like, it's tough if we feel boring. And I struggled with being, boring myself, if you can believe that. A lot of my early videos, it was painful to see how little people would listen. And so I've been on this journey to discover how to be more entertaining and educational at the same time, because it's not just about entertainment for me. It's how do we actually help people, how do we advance industries? How do we move the conversation forward with whatever our content is? And so I've been supporting remarkable leaders and authors and speakers for a long time now, and I always joke with folks that, whether you want your first 100 fans or your first 100,000, I can help you, because I've had experience with some bigger brands and then some smaller ones, and I love supporting people with a dream more than anything. And then, of course, with LaughTech, I was just a humor heals, right? Humor for me has been a godsend in the sense that after tragedy, it's like you need to have fun. You need to feel good. There's only so much alcohol and prayer can do. You need to just, live it up and have a good time. So I'm just excited to be here. So thank you so much.
Right. No, I'm glad to have you on. And I love that tag that you use of humor heals. It's like in 2 words, it's just so telling about what we need to do in life.
Yeah. And how do we help each other? And it was in my own grief and sadness that I was like, man, a lot of my friends are boring. No one knows what to say. And I was actually really angry at people. I was like, why is everyone so unsure of what to say? And death in itself, it's a tricky topic. I mean, no one really knows what to say. But my friend Brian, who he was able to make me laugh, and a couple people were able to make me laugh. And for me, that was such a gift. And I just feel that if people could develop their own mix of humor, they could pass that gift on when their sister or brother or friend or father or whoever goes through, their own pain. So that's part of our mission, is just how do we help other people who are maybe more logical or serious in nature? How do they get goofy and get giddy and how do they make their friends laugh? And it's hard. I thought it'd be a lot easier. It's actually quite hard to make people laugh really well.
Yeah. Well, it is funny because it is like a skill that you do have to kind of practice or put into your life. If you want to enjoy things, you have to look for enjoyment and figure out how to put those quirky little things into your day.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to create our own, design our life in a sense. And for me, I didn't understand humor. I thought it was, initially I thought humor was kind of a waste of time. And I looked at comedians and entertainers and the funny kids in class, and I just thought they were annoying. I really didn't respect it as a craft. And I've had a complete shift, because it is an art and it is a skill and it's possible. Anybody can figure it out if you are, like you said, you're willing to practice, you're willing to study and interview people and just, you have to, just like any skill, you have to work on it.
Oh, for sure.
So I keep working on it.
Yeah. Well, and it's one of those things too, is that, I used to say that I used to be funny, but then apparently after 20 years, it's just not funny anymore if you ask people around me. But you do have to keep learning new things because you can't just tell the same joke or go to the same gag, and you have to learn new things, or culture changes, or events are happening,
Yeah.
and that you can create new humor out of something that's going on in the world.
Right. And that's where, for my clients on the social media side, everyone is looking for something clever to post every day. And a lot of people are like, well, what do I say? What do I post? What do I talk about? And it's like, well, how do we, take your industry, your expertise, and make it interesting, make it social? And that, I've been working on that for 10 years, Andy, and it's tricky, but it's super fun too.
Wow.
And some people, it just can make really amazing marketing and advertising campaigns once they're confident with their message. And that's really cool when that happens.
Mhm. Oh, that's really it's funny because you don't think about how much people struggle with what to say just on a simple tweet or a Facebook post, and try to come up with something every single day.
Yeah, it used to be writer's block, and now it's Facebook block. People are like,
right? Yeah.
I'm like, well, you can hire me to help you if you'd like, but
which is different than getting blocked on Facebook.
Right? Yeah, totally different.
Yeah. So Marcelle, what is it that what's something that you have had to deal with or get over, or have learned to own that you felt awkward about in your life?
Yeah, sure. So early on, maybe not that early, I was 30 when I actually lost my husband. And for me, as a young woman, to have had such a short marriage and such a painful ending, in a sense, I had grief, like crazy, gross, disgusting, painful grief. And I'm this optimist, right? And I always want to cheer people up and be a source of joy for people. But I had my own pain. And all my other friends, they're having kids, they're married, they've got spouses and boyfriends and girlfriends, and they're living this, American dream and having joy and fun and family, and, they're getting married or getting divorced or something. But everyone had, it felt like for a long time, a partner or had kids. And I don't have kids, and I don't have a husband. And to me, that every networking event, every business meeting, people are like, oh, are you married? Do you have kids? And I hear that question, and I want to hurt someone. Like, it's a painful, awkward question. And I've had to really deal with owning that life event and being able to navigate some really crappy questions. They're not bad questions, but they suck when you're hurting. And how do you, when you're in that much pain, how do you still run a business? How do you still perform for your clients? How do you create and have your imagination? And it's been really, it's been a long road. And so that makes me awkward, and I'm moving on now. I've hit that 4-year mark, so I want to start dating again and getting back out there. But it's been really, like most people, you think widow, you think, like 70 or 80-year-old. They don't think, oh, this young woman here has this huge hole in her life. And I'm sure, if you've experienced death in your life, people go back to work, they go back to business, like their life continues. And mine was like, I had this big social media business, but it would take me 1 minute to post something in my day, and I had this 23-hour and 58-minute gap the rest of my day. It was like I had this huge hole, and it sucks, and I've filled my life up now with projects and Laugh Tech and clients, but it's been hard,
Yeah, I can't imagine. And first of all, I'm so sorry you've had to go through that. That is, death is something that always comes to everyone, but you never want to experience it, especially so young and unexpected a lot of times. But a couple things you said that really hit home. It's even just like you mentioned questions that come up, and we always try to question people to get to know them better, and especially at networking events, and with your personality in those situations almost more than a lot of people are. And it is kind of a reminder of what are the safe questions, and I'm not a big fan of being overly politically correct that you can't ask anybody anything because you never know, because really we could run out of any conversation if we had to consider what could ever upset anybody, but it does make you think about, even framing a question of, oh, well, what do you have going on in your personal life, or what do you have outside of work, and other than just making the assumptions of, do you have X, Y, or Z?
Yeah, I love. It's interesting.
So how have you?
Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I always ask people now, what's new and good in your life? Give them a chance to talk about something they choose, whether it's a new car or a new puppy or a new job or new project,
Yeah.
or new pizza, whatever. Like, what's new and good in your life? Like, because then you can lead the conversation to hopefully somewhere positive, and it's not, like a, I don't know, interview.
Right. Well, it's interesting because I've had a similar trick when I've managed and been in a leadership position with people where instead of asking how things are going, I'm like, so this is going well, right? Like, I lead the question to a positive answer, and I'm like, having a great day, instead of saying, how's your day?
Yeah.
It's like, it's like, because people don't like to be contrary. Excuse me.
Yeah.
But another thing that you mentioned was how, your nickname was Hallmark, and you're so optimistic. And so to deal with something so tragic, I don't think people can understand how much you're not only dealing with the loss of that person, but the loss of your identity in the expectation that you're the positive person around people.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was very interesting to rediscover who am I now with grief and an optimistic. Like, a lot of my friends are like, you're moving on too fast. You're, like, you need time to slow down. But at the same time, life was already so slow, and again, it's like beer and prayer can only do so much for someone. Like, you still have a huge day to fill, and how do you bounce back? I had the metaphor before. I felt like Tigger, Tigger, Winnie the Pooh and Tigger, like bouncing down through fun, but with shackles, like shackles and weights. Like, I wanted to bounce and have fun, and and that would crash and burn and just, cry for hours. And it's like, how do you bounce back? And what I love about improv, and I've learned from humor, is about improv and playing curveball and bouncing back and taking these weird things that people throw at you or life's events, and how do you bounce back and say, yes, this is happening, and I can do something, or yes, and I can, I can contribute, I can ask a question, I can say no, what can I do? And that's been a huge part of my resiliency is just the humor community and learning about really yes and. I think we should teach it in high schools and middle schools, and parents and marriage counseling. Everybody needs to know yes and. So come on and to help people, develop that resiliency.
Right. I think there's so many skills that we're all figuring out as adults that we look back and think, we need to know this at 12. It's like, let's back up a little bit.
Adulting is tricky.
And so that really is where Humor Heals was born, was it really was healing for you.
Yeah, and so there's a group on Facebook. If you guys want to search Humor Heals online, it's a free group. Anybody can join it. But it's just, if you're going through a hard time or you're struggling or you want to feel good and you want to giggle more and have fun more, you can post videos, you can post memes, you can post other, articles, whatever. But it's kind of a support group for people who are just, they want to choose happiness, but they also know that life's freaking weird and things happen. And, to have a community around you is really, really valuable.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, you can. I'll have the Humor Heals link in the description to this episode, as well as links to all of Marcelle's social media and websites. So check her out at Dreamosity and Laugh Tech and all that good stuff. So Marcelle, do you remember the first time or the first couple times you laughed when you were going through that?
Yeah, actually. So it was exactly 2 months after my husband passed away. I went to, believe it or not, a Toastmasters conference called She Talks, Comedy, Humor, and Improv. And the leaders who put that on brought 9 comedians to the stage. And that's actually where I first met Kermit Apio and Brian Trendler and several other comedians that day, or people that were entertaining and doing improv. And I just, 8 hours of pure joy, and I loved it. And I was instantly hooked, and I was like, oh, my gosh, is there a way to learn how to do this? Because I knew I didn't know how to do what they were doing.
Yeah, and you're like, I can finally bounce again.
Yeah, exactly. And I just, a lot of my social media background is in information marketing and making courses and online programs. And so I was like, oh, my gosh, we could totally make a course about this. And what I've learned is it's actually really hard to teach it digitally. It's much better, face-to-face and together. but that's where I first laughed again. And I was like, we need to do something with this. Like, I know a lot of boring people. My clients all need to develop some sort of memorable presentation. And I want to, movies and bowling sound like really boring after, like life just, after you lose someone, you want so much to be alive, or that's how I responded. I wanted to feel more alive, and humor makes me feel alive. Like, when people can really make me laugh, I am, my most happy, my most just kind of high vibration. It's a great feeling. Yeah,
and how did you feel? Did you have times where you second guessed your happy, or where you? Because it's not. One thing I've learned is that you don't get healed and then you're just good forever. I found that I'm good for 2 hours versus, I can't make it another 60 seconds. It's like, I made it 2 hours without a breakdown, or I made it 2 days or 2 weeks. And the length of time between the breakdowns just gets further away.
Yeah. Well, and before that event, I was doing probably 99% of my networking online. I was webinars and podcasts and, Facebook groups. And I had kind of lost that offline world, and so since then I've been really into the physical networking and the hugs and the handshakes and going to trainings and going to programs and going to networking groups, because I'm realizing that as much as I love the internet and Facebook and the power that we have at our fingertips, I also need just to look in your eyes and give you a hug sometimes, and I've definitely built a lot of events into my world now, so I have people I can see, and sometimes I cheer them up and sometimes they cheer me up, and that's what we need, community for, and comedy and humor and events. It's so powerful. So, but it's not like an on and off switch. You do need to build that new infrastructure into your world after a real hardship.
Well, for sure, and I like how you say you need to create the life, because you do need to create that world that you want to live in, and also it's the way that the person that you love would want you to be living.
Yeah, exactly. And he actually, before he passed, he told me, I was in a Toastmasters. He's like, you should totally check out improv and figure improv out. And I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
And then I know. So he was an artist. He knew that would help me in my speaking, and it has tremendously. So that was, and then part of my joy comes from knowing he would be very happy for me right now, knowing what I'm doing, which is really cool. Yeah.
And speaking of joy, you have a book coming out centered around joy.
I do. Yeah.
So you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's a fun, creative book. The other thing that makes me awkward is I love to doodle and draw, and I'm an artist at my core. But this book is called Financial Joy: Know the Data Behind Your Dreams. Because what I found is that in business, there's 3 types of entrepreneurs out there. There's your snail, slow and steady, they're underproducing. There's an ostrich, big and beautiful, dynamic, but kind of has their head in the sands, right? Totally oblivious to the data of their business. And then the seagull. And the seagull is confidently soaring in the marketplace saying, mine, mine, mine. Like, they're actually asking for the order. I'm glad you laughed at that. Thank you.
That's funny.
I worked hard to work on that.
I love the seagull analogy, because when I've heard you say that analogy, I always expect that you're going to say like an eagle or a hawk, and you come up with seagull, and it's like, why a seagull? But that makes sense when you throw the mine, like with Finding Nemo.
Yeah. Exactly. It's that
awesome.
childhood reference. And the eagles are beautiful. I mean, you could be an eagle in sales too, but I don't know them to say mine. Like, I don't know that that's their characteristic. They're graceful, but you can be graceful and broke, and that's a bad combination.
Well, and there are, a million memes out there about ducks and eagles, and, eagle is so overused that it's just refreshing to have just something that's more new and fun and grounded, and it fits with what you do.
Well, in the seagull, have you ever been down to, downtown Seattle, where they do ivers and you can feed the seagulls? They are, like, if you look at a sales metaphor here for a moment, they are, like, they will come by, like, they just keep circling and circling, and they will come and take as many french fries as you get. And in sales, a lot of times people will make one sale, and then they'll stop. It's like, you could offer them the same thing next month, right? Like, you could offer and serve and add value again and again and again. It doesn't stop with one, good customer interaction. Like, there is a sales cycle or a sales, funnel that you can work on again and again and again, and people often forget that. And I'm like, well, let's try again. Like, you can keep asking.
Right.
And so I make a good sales metaphor with the seagull. It's a good metaphor, but the book is a very creative, artistic attempt at bringing sales and money to life with art and
so is it
coloring,
centered
basically.
on? Yeah, and I love that too, because so many business books are so dry that you just get bored and lost, and you want to learn the details, but it's like, could this be on a movie or something for me? So who's your ideal person for that book? Is the ideal reader a salesperson strictly, or a business owner, or does it have applications to personal life?
Yeah, it definitely has applications for personal, but it is more of a business book, and it really is a sales book, but it's designed for the ostrich. So the character who is brilliant and dynamic and great ideas, but they have terrible budgeting skills. They don't know the credit score. They don't know how to figure out their sales pipeline or their sales rhythm or conversions, or they're scared of the numbers. So my goal is to help people look at the numbers with a creative and fresh perspective, so it's fun. Like, I know a lot of entrepreneurs that, they get their P&L or their balance sheet, and they're like, I got it. I glanced at it, but they're not understanding that data. They don't get it. They don't understand what it means, and to me, that can be very, very harmful. And part of, more of my other story is just, like, the opposite of financial joy is financial abuse. And if you don't understand your numbers, you are an easy target for someone. And that, I feel like the book's a little bit of a warning of, like, pay attention. Get your head out of the sand and pay attention, because it's important. It really is important. And it's just one of those things that's not fun to talk about, but I'm trying to make it fun.
Well, it's a lot better to talk about it and not deal with the unfun, the less fun side of the ramifications. That's a lot less fun to have those consequences.
Exactly. And so I'm just hoping that it's Brian, he's my designer on it. He's like, is this just for women? I'm like, no, this could be for men or women. I mean, it's very visual, and I do have a flower reference, but I think anyone who appreciates beauty and, winning in business is going to enjoy the book. Now, if you're already, like, making millions of dollars and you're super profitable, you probably won't care. But if you're struggling, if you're working on developing something really remarkable and you're still learning about numbers and sales and just marketing, it's going to be a really good fit for you.
I'd like to read it. When does that come out?
Oh, good. As soon as I finish it. It's really
all
close.
Right. It's close.
I'm hoping by October 1st. I'll put that out there. October 1st is my goal to have it done. So really soon.
Right around the corner. I did have a boss one day that says some days you just have to get a date on the calendar. Even if you don't end up hitting it, you got to get something on the calendar to strive for, just to have a goal.
Yeah.
So October 1st it is.
All right. You heard it here first.
All right. Yeah, that's awesome. The release episode. And, as you were talking about it, it's designed for the ostrich who's got their head in the sand. And you said they're the big, beautiful bird. And wouldn't that be a scary bird if you had something the size as an ostrich and that powerful that learned how to be aggressive like a seagull? I'd be running for my life.
Yeah, well, and a lot of entertainers are dynamic and they're brilliant, but they're not numbers people. They're not data people, and I'm attempting to make it an artistic take for them so they can enjoy it and actually get it. Versus spreadsheets. There's a limitation with a spreadsheet. They don't talk back to you. They're not like, excuse me, sir, you forgot to sell anything this month. Like, they don't talk to you. They don't.
Yeah.
Whereas it's missing a visual element. So the book's very visual. And actually, the book was inspired by a rant at Laugh Tech, right? So we do rants at Laugh Tech.
Oh, okay.
We want people to really express themselves, and that's how it's all connected, is it came from me ranting about a client who just totally had her head in the sand, and I'm like, look, you need to pay attention, and she didn't want to. And I get it. She was scared. It can be hard. But it was, so it's got a very humorous flavor to it because of Laugh Tech, and, all of our students that have been going through it, they've been a lot of the inspiration too, and helped me kind of form the messaging, which I'm super grateful for. Yeah,
and since you mentioned Laugh Tech again, how often do you do your courses and your mini courses where you're teaching people how to put the humor into business?
Yeah, so Right now we're doing 1 a week. We were doing 3 a week for a while. Starting in October,
Okay.
we'll be doing 2 a week again, a 101 and a 201. So there's always a new, workshop coming up.
You can always hop on one pretty quickly. Great, yeah.
Yeah, and people can join just a one mini workshop. You don't have to do all 7. You can just come experience it and see what it's all about to get a taste of it. And so we should be marketing more that you can come once. You don't have to come to all 7. Or if you miss the first one, it doesn't mean you can't still get value,
Yeah, and in your live feed a couple days ago, you said there's maybe a little break if you buy all 7.
Yeah, you definitely save a little bit of money if you buy all 7 at once, because it's just easier for the books and stuff.
Sure.
And we get our
But
commitment.
yeah, if you want to get a flavor, or you,
commit.
and I think you said too that each mini workshop is a different subject, right? So you're not behind if you jump into the middle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that's where we've got some people even retaking them, because you can learn a lot about story or sensation or scene. You can learn a lot in a couple hours, but you could come back in 6 months and still learn a lot more, right? So I'm hoping that people will come drop in again, because you're constantly, again, the internet, you can't just have one message and be done. Like, you have to refine and rework and, make it better. And it's a constant, I don't know, there's just always change, and people like variety. It's like you can't just do one podcast and be a podcaster. You've got to do hundreds of them.
Right.
It takes time to build those digital assets.
And I imagine too, because things are so interactive in that room, that just the dynamics of who showed up that week could completely change what you have the chance to experience or learn, or what comes up, or what questions come up in each individual class.
Exactly. And that's what I love about it as one of the teachers, is it's just dynamic and wonderful and variety. And some days it's like therapy, and some days it's just, comedic relief, and sometimes it's just really entertaining. And it's a good blend, and people like to share their ideas. And I think that's my favorite part, is we're helping people share their ideas better, with the spoken word.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun to see them develop their stories and hone their craft and become more dynamic.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome. So we have got just a couple minutes left here. What is the one overriding thing that you really want? If you had the world's attention for a minute and a half for everyone to get your message, what does it boil down to that they need to know?
Great question. So I would say that we all have our own mix of humor. Some of us are more entertaining or more sarcastic, and whatever that mix is, if you don't know what your mix of humor is, I would encourage you to develop your mix and learn different ways to make a message come to life. And like, joy is such a gift, and when you can give that gift to others because you've developed your humor muscles, your comedic talents or whatnot. Like, we're not trying to train comedians necessarily. We're trying to train the everyday business owner or presenter or mom, husband, wife, whatever, to develop their mix of humor. And so if you haven't thought about developing your mix of humor, I would encourage you to start today and just see what types of humor there are. And go do improv. Come to Laugh Tech. Go somewhere where you can develop your message into something more confident and humorous, so you can entertain your friends when they're having a rough day.
Mhm. And so if someone's wants to put humor in their life, they're afraid to get on stage, they're afraid of improv. What do you think is the easiest little thing just to try to do in your day-to-day, at the office or on the road? What's a simple thing someone could do to just try to laugh?
Well, so here's what I did. Right after I went to that She Talks event, I put on my voicemail, I said, "Hey, thanks for calling, Marcelle. Please leave a joke at the message."
Oh, that's funny.
And every day, still 4.5 years later, I have people leaving me these really awkward jokes on my voicemail, and it makes my day. Like, my mom even printed out a list, so anytime she calls me, she'll have one ready. And it was just, it's asking for what you want. It's asking for something you want. And that was just a silly, stupid thing I thought of, and it's been a miracle. Like, it's amazing. All the weird knock-knock
I
jokes.
love that idea. And I can imagine being on the spot the first time you hear it, not knowing where to go or what to say.
Yep.
I'd be the guy that's like, I'm going to have to call back.
Well, and then
funny.
People do, and then I get a really good joke, which is even better because they'll think about it and call me back again. So,
I love that.
Yeah,
That
change your voice.
So if you're calling Marcelle, be ready.
Yes, be ready with the joke, please.
That is a great tip. Well, hey, we are getting down to the last couple seconds, so I really want to thank you for being here, Marcelle. I really appreciate it. You put so much good stuff out into the world. It's great to have positive voices out there, and I think it's important for people to know that, positive voices don't come from people who haven't had any struggles. It comes from people who have been through some really tough things and have learned how to live.
Yeah, that's so true. Thank you so much for having me today. I appreciate it, and I'm excited to listen to your future episodes.
All right. Well, thank you. Check back next week. We'll have another episode, and we'll see everybody next time. Take care. Thank you so much for listening in for today's show. Be sure to visit awkwardcareer.com to continue your journey. And of course, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends so they can find their awkward side and learn how to own it.